Let's talk about the Eleans. The Eleans, now, on the other hand, the Ionians believed all of reality was real, physical, and the Eleans believe basically physical reality is a hoax, that it's not really there. The change is an illusion. All is one. And sort of the father of this is a guy by the name of Parmenides, and Parmenides wrote about it, and he had a follower named Zeno. And Zeno created a series of what we call paradoxes. And dox means belief, and para means beyond, and so it means beyond belief. And so what happens basically with a paradox is the idea that it's something that's beyond belief. It creates a situation. Basically what a paradox does is it sets up one thing and then shows something that's contradictory. And so you see reality one way, but then they show something that's kind of contradictory. And so it's like, how do these two mesh? How do they get back together? And so they're basically putting a question. And so Zeno comes up with a series of paradoxes that are attempting to show how physical reality must be changeless and one, and in a completed form, and that reality as we know it through this experience of change and through the physical world is an illusion. And what he does is he comes up with a series of paradoxes. A lot of them are kind of like a runner's paradox. But the basic idea of a runner's paradox is, you get a runner and he's going to start the race here at this corner. He's going to run the race all the way to the other side and cross the finish line. Well, what he says, in order to run that race, what the runner must first do is the runner must run half the distance of the course. Okay, easy enough. But then in order to run the next half of the race, they have to run half of the remaining distance. Fair enough. And then they'd have to run half of the remaining distance still, and half still, and still, and still, and still. But what he says, a racetrack can be infinitely divided. So if you were going to run a mile race, in order to run a mile race, you first have to run the first half mile. To run the second half mile, you have to run a quarter mile. Then you have to run an eighth, and a 16th, 32nd, a 64th, a 128th, a 256th, a 512th, a 1024th, a 2048th, etc., etc., etc. And what happens is you get down to a point where you can never actually reach the finish line. Why? Because you have to cross an infinite number of halves, whether it be a billionth or 2 billionth, a 4 billionth, an 8 billionth, a 16 billionth, a trillionth, a quadrillionth, a quintillionth, a sextillionth, a septillionth, an octillionth, and I don't know what 9 would be. So, as you continue along into this sort of continual effort to, break up all of it, if an infinite number can never be counted to. And so you can never actually stop the infinite division of halves. And so in order to cross the finish line, you would have to cross an infinite number of halves. But you can't do an infinite number of halves, because if you could do an infinite number of halves, it wouldn't be an infinite number. It would be a finite number, because infinites are something to which you cannot count. And so what happens is they say you can never finish the finish line. As a matter of fact, you could start with something like, here's a stereo remote where, before it can hit the bottom of the screen, it has to travel the last half. And then it has to travel the half before and the half, and you go on and on and on. So before it can even move an inch, it has to do an infinite number of, parts. But yet you see that when you drop it, it falls. And so there's a paradox. You can see somebody complete a race, but yet they shouldn't be able to complete the race because they can't do an infinite number of tasks. So what are they saying? Well, they're saying that we are in fact in an illusion. We think we see the people finish the race. We think we see the people cross the finish line, but in fact we are being deceived by that. And what they suggest is that reality is all one changeless entity, and that we are somehow being fooled by it. Now, with that said, the idea here is that we see reality changing. We see it unfolding. And I think the best example of this would be, I use this, but used to be, and now of course it's broken down by, if you see a movie, like you're watching this right now, if I were to edit this, I would bring up a editing software, and it would show a series of little boxes, sort of like an old-time motion picture where there's little itty-bitty pictures. And what happens is the second of this video is, I don't know what I have it programmed to be. It may be 10 images, it may be 30, it may be 60. You know, I mean, a full-length motion picture might have 100, 500. You know, it just depends upon how many per second it would have. Now, I wouldn't have that many because this doesn't require that great of video quality in order for you to get the basic point. But what happens is within a time frame, you know, you see there's all these little spots. And when you're watching right now, you are seeing me talk and go through this. But I'm not doing that at the moment while you're watching this, am I? No, I've already done it. Reality is done and is in this video, and it's on this reel or in this digital format that allows that it's complete, it's there. But somehow you are watching it and you have gotten stuck into the video and you see reality changing before your eyes. And you see it moving. But you're simply, you know, you're experiencing the illusion of change. You aren't actually experiencing change, you're experiencing the illusion. And what the Eleans, what Zeno and Parmenides are saying is they're saying that, you know, they are saying that we are being fooled into thinking we see things changing, we see reality moving, but in fact, it isn't. Reality is one changeless entity, and we are being fooled into thinking it's changing. We are somehow stuck in the movie. Reality has happened, it's there, it is this changeless thing, and yet we somehow, because we are stuck in this world, are somehow being deceived into seeing reality change.